Welcome back to another video. It's a Thursday night. The lights are on our deck. I am loving having frosty and something to light up the darkness of the evenings, and it's dinner time. So I went to the website Dinner at the Zoo and I looked up her beef and broccoli recipe, and I just wrote down the ingredients to make the sauce. So it calls for oyster sauce. I don't have it. I wrote down a couple of things that you can substitute with it. I used a combination of fish sauce and soy sauce and water. I actually doubled up the sauce because I really wanted to kind of have a nice saucy dinner, and I'll explain more as I go. So I have the broccoli prepped and ready to go. I also have the mushrooms. And I went to my freezer and I took out 2 steaks that I had purchased in the summertime that were starting to get freezer burned. I cut them up and I added a little bit of sesame oil and salt and pepper. And then I also am using this millet and brown rice ramen. I'm doing a little a different take on beef and broccoli, and I'm also experimenting a little bit with just making a quick, easy dinner. So I think I started this about 5:30, and I knew that the ramen would be quicker than rice. So I just kind of have my colander ready to go because you rinse it with cold water. I still have a few dishes. It's 5:41 and I wasn't even going to film this, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to. So some of the sesame oil had splattered up, but it'll get cleaned up. And that's one of the things too, when you're cooking steak and beef, you don't want to overcook it because it gets very tough. So I'm just making sure that it's browned, and then I'm just going to remove it and I'm going to cover it with tinfoil because it's going to continue cooking as it sits. So I'm just going to wipe out my pan from the sesame oil and everything from the steak. So once again, I'm going to add a little bit of sesame oil, and then we're going to put a little bit of ginger and garlic in here. This is something I really enjoy using. I really experimented a little bit whenever I had made my ramen. I'll link that recipe down below if you want to see it. Just getting creative. So I added the broccoli and the mushrooms. I'm just going to cook them down a little bit, not too much. I still want a little bit of crispness in the broccoli, and I love mushrooms. Anytime I can add mushrooms to a recipe, that's great. I'm also trying to clean things up as I'm doing it so I don't have a great big mess to clean up after dinner, because this is one of those nights where I didn't really want to cook dinner and I didn't want to do a lot of cleanup afterwards. So the ramen goes in and then it cooks for about a minute, and then the instructions say to kind of break it apart with a fork. So I'm going to do that with my tongs, I think. And then I added a little bit of water to the broccoli just to steam it a little bit. I really want to keep that nice green color. And then I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes for the ramen, and it starts to boil over. They say about putting a wooden spoon. And then I remember hearing about throwing an ice cube in it. So I just quickly grabbed an ice cube out of the freezer, threw it in. It worked really well, but then it started to bubble up again. But it's just one of those things where my pot starts to boil, I turn it down. So if you have any tips, I would greatly appreciate it. And now, I'm just adding the steak back in. So I think this was 3 minutes with the broccoli and the mushrooms, not too long, because I really want to make sure that it's not overcooked. And I'm really honestly trying to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes. So I'm adding the sauce, and then I'm going to let that bubble up and boil. So I still have dishes because we had 2 different dinners this night. So Andrew ate first and then hubby and I are eating later. So that's what happened. My husband was sitting with our son at the table, and then I was chopping the broccoli and the mushrooms and all of that. And now it's just dinner for hubby and I. So I'm just rinsing the noodles. And then I also have the cornstarch. So I'm going to get my tablespoon out and then add this in. And this is kind of where I made my oopsie in the dinner. So I've made this before and it's thickened up nicely, but I think I always ended up adding more cornstarch. So I really thought when I added the cornstarch in here that it would really thicken up, and I was really in a hurry. And sometimes that happens, but I'll share with you what I do to try and save the dinner. It definitely was a little bit more watery than I wanted, but I wanted a lot of juice because I was adding in the ramen. I debated on using 4, but I decided to go with 3, just taking my scissors to cut them up because I just find it's a little bit easier to mix it up. So I'm just using I think this is a pasta fork or something like that. And if I did this again, I would remove some of the beef and broccoli because I'm using this for lunch the next day too. And it definitely did not reheat the best, but it was definitely nice and quick and easy to make dinner. So I just went over to my hutch. I grabbed the 2 bowls that I like to use, and then I'm also going to go ahead and get the lunch containers out because my priority is trying to make something for lunch the next day. As I was plating up our dinner, I was trying to focus on having most of the noodles in our dinner bowls because I probably knew that this wasn't going to heat up that great, and I definitely want to focus more on the meat and the vegetables for our lunches. That's what we find like usually a little bit less carbs at lunch works best for us. Just keeps us full and satisfied, and then we like to have our carbs at dinner. And you could definitely see that it was very liquidy, and I'm going to try and fix this a little bit. And I should have mixed the cornstarch into a little bit of the broth separately because it did get a little bit lumpy, but it still turned out. And I'm just going to bring this to a boil and then whisk the cornstarch in to try and thicken it up a little bit. And then as that's coming to a boil and thickening up a little bit more, I'm just going to go ahead and start putting some more stuff away. So like I said, there's not as much cleanup. So really all I was trying to do was just thicken up what was left. So here it is, 5:58. I started this about 5:30, so it definitely thickened up. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just take my spoon and just put some of it on top of the noodles for our dinner tonight, just to give it a little bit more flavor, because this is definitely where a lot of the flavor was, with the pan and the drippings and, the garlic and the ginger. It was really good. So anyways, this was the finished product. I just cleaned it up a little bit, just put a little bit of sesame seeds on top. And this honestly was a 30-minute dinner. I could have made some rice too in my rice cooker, but I just wanted to keep it really simple. And I wanted to see how the ramen held up. And this was really good. My husband and I he ate it so fast. It was really good. It was delicious. I did like the ramen at the dinner at night, but I wasn't crazy for it being heated up and left over. But it was really, really good. And I don't have too much to clean up. So hopefully, seeing this lets you know that you can make a quick, easy dinner. All I have to do is clean up the stovetop. Sometimes things work out and sometimes things don't, and it's okay. Sometimes you can fix things, and you honestly learn the best from the mistakes that you make. It is the next day, so it's Friday morning, and I kind of organized my freezer a little bit, and I got one side of it completely cleaned out. If you didn't know, our deep freeze that we had in our basement quit after 25 years. We lost a lot of food, and this is really the only freezer space that I have right now. I do have one in the garage, but I just kind of got everything moved over here. So I have some rice, some homemade beans, some frozen vegetables, and all of my proteins. And then I cleared all of this out, so I got to get it cleaned up. But I want to do a little bit more freezer cooking and all of that, but I need to figure a lot of that out for space and everything. And then up here, just have the popsicles. The ice bucket takes up a lot of space, but I really like having an ice maker. It's really convenient. And then a little bit of convenience foods up here, and my yeast and the quiche and everything from Christmas. And then there's some frozen stuff at the back from the summer, like there's some green peppers, more yeast, because I have bread machine yeast, regular yeast, and then the other yeast. And I really just wanted to kind of clean up my freezer inventory too. So I have a 4-part food organization series down below. So everything was getting really kind of jumbled up. So I really kind of wanted to revamp it. We've cleaned a lot of different things up, some convenience foods too, which I'm trying to stay away from. But I really want to focus on having a little bit more stuff in my freezer. But it was just getting to the point where it was getting harder and harder to kind of see exactly what I had. And I also wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So what I did was I just went back, went back and forth and updated everything. So updated January the 26th. So I know exactly what I have. And the only thing that I was off by was one steak, and then, popsicles and yeast I always have. So I just kind of, cleaned everything up. And then I'm looking, chicken feta sausage, chicken thighs. What can I make for those? So it gives me a little bit of an idea of what's in my freezer too. So, chicken thighs, I can make chicken curry. I can do panko encrusted chicken. I have two packs of pork chops. So that would be like a dinner for the 3 of us, and then a pork chop for leftovers. The steaks, I definitely want to make more of that beef and broccoli. So I could prep that ahead, have it for dinner with one night with the ramen, and then keep the other parts separate. So it'd be a quick and easy lunch. I have one more stew beef, so I could recreate that stew that I made again. Some sausage tubes. I can make a breakfast casserole because I do have those cheese bagels. And then just a little bit of frozen vegetables that I have bought. And then the ones from summer, I'm kind of hanging on to them because I lost my stuffed green peppers and everything that was in my deep freeze. But I'm very happy to have a nice updated freezer inventory. So so I can see exactly what I have and, also what I need to buy too. So just wanted to share a little update. And this is kind of maintenance, and it really doesn't take a lot of time. So I have this freezer in our garage too. This is the fridge that came with the house, and it's over like 25 years old. So we have some cranberry bliss bars, and then I have a little bit of bread out here, and the temperatures have dipped again, so this is working great. So the bread and everything's frozen, but I don't want to put any meat or anything out here. So the cranberry bliss bars, we're enjoying them here and there from Christmas. I want to savor them because they're not something I enjoy making, but I really like having some stuff in here. But everything else has been finished. And then I'm actually going to bring this bread in for dinner tonight because we are having chili. And then I still have that other loaf that I was thinking about making a breakfast casserole with, but we'll see. I am focusing a little bit more on tonight's dinner, and Andrew will be having pizza. So before I get everything started, I want to have lunch. So I am going to take what I made the night before, which was really, really good. And I'm just going to share with you how I heat it up because we don't have a microwave at home anymore. I could throw this in the air fryer with some parchment paper. It would heat up really easily. So I usually just put a little bit of cooking spray in my pan and then I just dump it in here. And I definitely, I used fish sauce, and I don't have a low sodium soy sauce. It was very salty, and we don't use a lot of salt in our cooking, so it was definitely really salty the next day. And then I just heat it up, and I'm just putting it in a bowl, and that's what I'm going to eat. It was really good. The noodles were definitely mushy. It was very salty, but the beef and the vegetables and everything were good. And I was really happy to have something to eat for lunch. So I enjoyed this. Now it's time to start making some chili. So I have a white onion, green pepper, mushrooms were on for 94 cents out to Walmart. So I want to take advantage of that. This celery should have been chopped up last week and put in the freezer, but I'm going to use it today. I also want to make some spaghetti sauce. I was planning on doing it this weekend, but it didn't happen. But I really want to make sure nothing goes to waste. And when I make chili, this is usually the vegetables that I like to use in it. And that's one of the things is, when you're making something, use what you have. You can chop more up, throw it in a baggie, put it in the freezer. If you didn't feel like making this, you could chop up your onion, your green pepper, and your celery, put it in a bag, and then when you go to make your chili, you can just dump it in if you use an Instant Pot, or if you use your slow cooker, or if you're doing it like me and making it on the stovetop. So if you put it in there, label it, add it to your freezer inventory, and it'll probably save you time and money in the future. So anyways, we are going to start chopping. I still have a couple of white onions, so I'm going to use them. I think one of the things I like about the white onions is I really, really like the size. And then I just keep them in my fridge because I never cry. They're nice and cold. And then I'm just going to dice these up. And this is one of those things where I really, I either want to cook or I don't want to cook. So the night before, I just was not in the mood to cook. The thoughts of cutting up the broccoli and the mushrooms, and that's why I went with the ramen because it was really quick and easy. And right now I'm just trying to chop this up, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I have some music playing on. The house is quiet. It's just the dogs and I at home. And this is when I really kind of enjoy everything. And this is going to be a very time-consuming chili making process, but I am making a lot because I want to fill up the freezer with some of these quick, easy lunches and also some quick, easy dinners for my family. I had 2 packages of ground beef in my freezer they've been there for a while, so I thought this was a great opportunity. So I actually browned up both of them and then put them into my Dutch oven here. And I'm going to have to get 2 pots for this because by the time I add the tomatoes and the kidney beans and everything else, it's just going to end up being a big mess. That's one of those things. I need to keep an eye out for a bigger pot. So when I want to make large batches, it's a little bit easier for me, but then it's trying to find the space. So I wish I would have kind of kept everything separate and done it, but I'm just trying to do the best that I can. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, just taking my spoon and just transferring some of the ground beef, the onions, and the green peppers into my other end. That's one of the things is you can use your Instant Pot to make quick, easy dinners. If you work all day, you'd be surprised how quick stuff cooks in the Instant Pot. You can use pasta, meat, and peppers, put everything in there, go up, change your clothes, and by the time you come down, dinner is ready. And, you can use your slow cooker. But when I have the time, I love just to cook on the stovetop and let things kind of cook slowly, sit in the pot and really like absorb all those flavors. So we're going to get the celery cooked up, and then I'm trying to kind of do this in the two separate things. So I have 4 stalks of celery on each side, and then I'm just going to add them in. Hunter is supervising in case anything kind of flies onto the floor. He'll pick it up. And then I'm doing the same thing with the mushrooms. I just take them out of the container, wipe them down, and then I'm just chopping them up. It doesn't have to be fancy, just slicing them up. And, you can use canned mushrooms for this, but 94 cents for fresh mushrooms, that is cheaper than canned mushrooms where I live. So I'm just going to slice them up as quickly as I can. And please let me know, can you freeze mushrooms? I never have, but I wonder if you could. So comment down below. So here we go. We are just going to go ahead and add in the mushrooms to this pot. And then we're really going to start getting to work. And that's the thing, this is a little bit more time consuming. My second batch of mushrooms is ready to go here. And I'm going to definitely have a lot of lunches from this, a lot of dinners. And I think that's one of the things too is, if you're making chili for dinner, make a little bit extra. I had a couple of packets up in my pantry. It's a reduced sodium chili mix. So I'm putting 1 in each of them. I'm, using a lot of things that I have in my pantry, things that I've purchased at Costco, just so when I want to make something, I have everything. And then I'm just kind of cleaning up as I go here too. Same as I did the night before. So I had bought these Bush's chili beans. So they were just red kidney beans with the chili sauce in it. So this is going to amp the flavor up too. And then I'm not adding any spices or salt to this because there's going to be lots from the tomatoes and then the seasoning packs and everything else that I add in. But I am going to add a little bit more chili powder later. And then as I'm doing all of this, because I recycle, we compost, I'm rinsing the cans out too so I can take everything out. And then I'm just kind of dumping and going in. And that's one of the things is when I make chili, it always tastes different because I never really use the same recipe. It's one of those things where, do I have this? Do I have that? I'll dump this in. If I have different cans of tomatoes, I'll dump that in. So I also had 1 can of just brown beans. So I'm just splitting it half between the 2 pots. So that's something definitely I want to pick up too. I always like to have brown beans in my pantry, and this was my last can. So everything is good to go. And then, like I said, I'm just trying to clean everything up as I go. So here is all of my containers. These are a few extra cans I just didn't end up using, and I do diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, and tomato paste. So it's 1:15 right now. Definitely time consuming, but it's going to be all worth it. And then now the hard work comes in is getting this all mixed up. And I'm also going to add a little bit more chili powder. The seasoning packet adds a lot, but I know that this is a nice dark color. And I'm not adding any other spices. I'm not adding any more salt because of all of the canned products I have, and then using the seasoning pack. But I definitely like to have a nice chili flavor to it. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this. And then also the seasoning that was in with the Bush's chili beans was really nice too. So I'm just going to mix this all in. It's not very thick, but as it cooks down, it's definitely going to get a lot more liquid, especially with the mushrooms and the vegetables. And, I could have sauteed them all down, but this kind of adds to the flavor too, and it keeps all of the nutrients to the vegetables kind of into the pot of chili. At least I think it does. So that is what we are going to do. And then I looked at it, and then I saw that I had another can of kidney beans in my pantry because I was thinking about making like a really nice minestrone soup. So I decided to go ahead and add another can of kidney beans to each of them. So I'm just going to let this kind of come up to a boil and then mix it all together again and then simmer it for about half an hour to an hour. So I just added those in, rinsed them all out, and then I used my colander to rinse them too. So I'm going to let this come to a boil, and then as that is doing it, I'm going to kind of get everything cleaned up to get everything washed by hand that needs to, and then get my sinks clear, and because I want to do some more baking today. And then I just take a plate and keep that out so I can mix this up, and I'm not always having to clean the same mess over and over. So it is 1:27 right now. I have everything cleaned up, washed, you know, there's not a big mess, and I'm just going to do the last little mix in with these kidney beans, and then it has come to a boil, so I'm going to reduce the heat a little bit and then just kind of let it simmer for an hour. And the great thing about this cast iron pan is this is definitely going to keep cooking. It keeps the heat a lot better than this other one here, so I probably should have used my other cast iron one, but I'm actually going to make some banana muffins, and I already made these with you. I was kind of experimenting a little bit with the heat. So I have 4 bananas. I'm just mashing them up with my fork. And I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to do too, is establish like just basic recipes where I make them over and over again. And then it's kind of like in my memory. And then they're ones that my family will get used to too. So I can write them down. So this is the grandma's banana nut bread. Is really good, and then it says what to do to convert it to muffins. I'll link this one down below. These were really great. So I'm chopping up the pecans again. I could buy them chopped up already, and that's one of the things I said in an earlier video, just in case you didn't see it. I'm trying to just keep everything as simple as I can with things that I use in my kitchen. So just using a cutting board and a knife to, you know, chop things up and prep them instead of getting out like a food processor and all of that, because it's just more stuff to clean. It's more mess out on your countertop, and it's just really easy to wipe down a cutting board and, you know, a knife, and just, you know, it's a little bit of work, but it's okay. So I have my wet ingredients here. So it's a cup of sugar. I also filled up my flour and sugar here too, because they were getting low. So it's just doing those little maintenance things and using my whisk. Trying to mix everything by hand, and that's one of the things they always say for muffins, is not to overmix. And I'm also trying to clean out my pantries. I have 2 of them. They're pretty messy, and one of the things I do is I buy a lot of things with an intent to, you know, try a new recipe or get creative in the kitchen, and then I'm thinking this is great, but when it comes time to cooking and making things, I'm like, I don't necessarily always want to try a new recipe. I want to have recipes that I know that work. So this is just the flour, a little bit of baking soda, and then I'm just going to mix this up, add my pecans. And then I also had some mini chocolate chips that were in my pantry that need to be used up. So I'm going to put them in too. And, you know, everything tastes better with chocolate. I really like the mini chips. I really wish they did more flavors in the mini chocolate chips, because I find they're a really nice addition to cookies or muffins compared to the great big chocolate chips. So that is one thing. You know, and it might even be easier to buy like a chocolate bar or something too, and, you know, chop it up. And if they go on sale, it's probably cheaper than what a bag of chocolate chips is. So that's something to think a little bit about too. So I actually have my oven preheated to 425 degrees. And that was, I think, what I learned from the blueberry muffins that I had made in this month. And I have the playlists, they're linked on my channel for 2024. I'm trying to like kind of have everything going as a story, so you can kind of see, like, you know, whether it be January or, you know, November, you can kind of see like my whole process to the year. And I think that's one of the things I'm really focusing on this year in 2024, is to simplify a lot of things in my kitchen, try some new recipes, get creative, but also have some tried and true favorites. So I am just making 12 muffins. I've talked about that. It works for our family. We're a family of 3. Everybody gets a muffin, and I just kind of break it down into 4 groups of 3. So I'm just getting all of my batter, going to make 12 delicious muffins, and then I'm going to put them in the oven at 425 degrees for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn the heat down to 350 and then bake them for another 15 minutes. So 5 minutes at 425, put the heat down to 350, and then we're going to check on the chili. So I had an oopsie. I ended up switching it to my cast iron anyways, because one of the things that happens is this pot will burn away, and look at the mess I have. So I'm just going to spray it with Dawn Power Wash, put hot water on it, and let it soak. I'm not going to worry about it now. I'm going to worry about it later, because I don't have the time to do it right now. And I'm trying to get laundry, you know, I'm trying to get some other stuff done, and then making sure that I keep an eye on my muffins. So thank goodness for timers. So there is the muffins. Look at them. They look so beautiful. And then there is the chili. So I'm very happy with the way this has come together. It smells really good. So with the cast iron, it's going to continue cooking. It is now 250. So I got to get everything cleaned up. I got to start thinking about, pickup, and Andrew's going to have pizza for dinner. So I'm just pulling some things out. I had some pizza buns in the freezer that he really likes. So I'm going to have those for him. And then I just take my stainless steel spatula and then I scrape it all out. And then once again, I'm going to spray it with the Dawn Power Wash, run the hot water, and then let it sit. So it's later. The muffins and everything have cooled down. I have my Rubbermaid take-along containers. I get these at Walmart. I really like them. They stack really easy. There's a little crumb there. They go in the dishwasher, hand wash. They're great for everything. They don't stain. I like the clear lid. I just like everything about it. And I'm just breaking these down into threes. So we're actually going to have them for breakfast the next morning. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put them in the freezer in the garage. And I know what's out there, so I'm not really doing an inventory with the freezer in the garage. And then I just put the lid on and I know exactly what these are. And I think that's one of the things I'm trying to do instead of buying, certain things, is making ones from scratch. So there's my muffins. I have my cranberry bliss bars and my bread. And then at Christmas time, I was buying these gingerbread muffins. They were so good. They were like $6 for 4. And I know that there was a lot more ingredients in them than what I made. So I'm just going to spray this with the Dawn Power Wash, run the hot water, and then I'll wash this later. So I'm not worrying about it now. I'm just trying to kind of get everything figured out. So now it's time to think about dinner. So I'm heating up this Dutch oven and it smells good. It definitely has a lot more liquid. And then this one here, I'm going to freeze it. And then as I reheat them, they'll cook a little bit more. And then I took an SOS pad to this. And it just needs a little bit more scrubbing. So I'm just going to use my Scrub Mommy brush. I really like them because it has a sponge on the other side. And then here is our dinner. Nothing too fancy. A little bit of sour cream, some grated cheese, and then the sourdough bread. It was so good. My husband said that was good chili. So I was happy about that. So these are the Ziploc containers I have that I really, really liked and I wanted to get more of. And I went to Walmart. They didn't have these anymore. And these are just really nice because they screw on. I think my daughter has a few of these too because I always send stuff home with her. And then these are more Rubbermaid ones. I think I picked these up at the dollar store. These are a little bit thinner because the other ones that I use, they're bigger. And I'm trying to portion this out so it'd be dinner for my husband and I, or if it's a night that my husband and I are having something that we don't like, I can add some macaroni to it too, to, stretch it a little bit further. It would feed the 3 of us. It's something our son likes. And then I'm also thinking about, this is Friday night, but I'm also thinking about lunch on Monday. So I have my husband's container for his lunch, and then I'm going to have some for myself. And then I have another Ziploc container here. So I'm going to put that up. So that's one of the things I have to work on in 2024 is my containers. They're kind of all over the place again. Everything has kind of gotten away from me. Ones I like that they don't make anymore, and kind of these single serve portions, which these little Ziploc ones are. So there's my husband's lunch. There's lunch probably for me on Monday and Tuesday, and then some containers to go in the freezer too. A lot of work, a lot of cleanup, but it is definitely worth it to have good homemade dinners. And that's really what I'm trying to do more of with myself. So some of this stuff might seem repetitive to you, but I'm trying to show the reality of trying to keep up on everything. So, chili, I made this on January 26th. I have all of the different containers in here, and look at, there it is, all in my freezer, nice and neatly organized. And then I also have the one up here. So I'm making it work with the freezer that I have. And then these little popcorn chicken, I need to probably put them into a Ziploc. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got some ideas or just a little bit of motivation not to be afraid in your kitchen, and do what works for you and do it when the time is right. Because if you don't have the time, don't force it. So thanks for watching.